Trigger warning. This episode has mentions of suicide. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs support, resources are available in the episode description.
Yo, it is Mallika again, bumping into you very often, huh?
Yes. Hi, beta. How are you?
Hi, uncle. Hi, auntie.
On the way to record your podcast? I said it correct, no?
Oh, what podcast?
Again, you're forgetting? Remember she telling us about her fashion brand council plans? You know, she's making clothes out of garbage. Sorry, industrial waste. Anyway, now she is talking to some diverse and creative people about their own council plans in life.
Wow, that's quite right actually, auntie. You know, uncle, many of us have unexpected twists and turns in our lives, and through my show, I want to look at these plans we make and the plans that we break and how we persevere through it all.
Correct. Well done.
Quite interesting, I say. So, who are you talking to on the podcast today?
This week on the Cancel Plans podcast, my guest is beauty professional and an influencing artist, Elton Fernandez. We talk about his stints in the corporate world, his difficult process of coming out, navigating queer politics, and his advice for aspiring beauty professionals.
Okay. Hello. Is this working? Okay, good. You, so much color, so much extra. All this makeup, nail polish and all in my days only ladies did such things. What will your parents say? Thing is, I want you to be happy and successful in your life. You need stable 9 to 5 and all that. But I'm thinking, I have my friend Lada's daughter's wedding next week actually. You can do a little makeup, some hair curling and all for me.
I find it ironic and funny when heterosexual women judge queer folk, especially about our dating choices or our life choices, because we are not the ones spitting out babies for strangers. You are not coming from any place that requires me to take your advice. So you need to check yourself and your privilege before you come at me with any ideas.
Telling it like it is. That's one thing I love about you, Elton. Now let's get back to our chat. I'm going to start with something a little bit deep, which is, I think you're one of the most resilient people I know. And in my experience, resilience is something that's built over the course of a lot of cancel plans. Life sometimes throws us these curveballs only to make us stronger and come into our power. So I want to hear about some of your pivotal cancel plans that you attribute to making you the person that you are today.
My biggest cancel plan that I recall is growing up, I always wanted to be a singer-songwriter. And I did give it some shot. It's not like I didn't. I participated in all these singing competitions and all of this stuff. I was a finalist on SS Music Voice Hunt, which found Anuj Gurwara and Bhargavi Pillai and all these singers. But that was the biggest cancel plan. But yeah, other plans fall into place, I suppose. Other than that, I'd say, all plans with regard to love have sort of cancelled themselves out.
I want to hear a little bit about your journey. You were in Hyderabad. Now you're in Bombay. And what happened in between?
Schooling, I was in suburbs of Bombay called Thane city. And I finished my entire schooling there. And then the Gulf War happened and my father used to work in the Gulf, in the Middle East. And he could either sort of come back without anything overnight or stay back as a refugee, which a lot of my other family had to do for years. So my father chose to come back, and so we had to start afresh. And so that's why the family had to move from Thane and relocate to Hyderabad, because that's the only place we could afford to sort of move and build afresh, since my father's family hails from Hyderabad. So that change was really, really very drastic for me. I remember as a school kid, I just finished my 10th standard. And I remember taking the train and coming all the way to Hyderabad and sitting by that window seat and feeling this melodramatic moment pass you by and thinking, oh my God, I don't even speak these languages down south. I don't know how I'm going to manage. And
how old were you?
10th standard. But these changes in ecosystems are also cancel plans. But what happened in between then is, I suppose, just adapting to a new culture. And Bombay is so different. I mean, when you're raised here and you grow up here, you don't realize it. But when you move outside of the city and you have to live your day, then you realize how attitudes change. People's view of you and the world and everything else around them is different. And how they apply their own fears and misunderstandings also changes. And I found Hyderabad was a lot less sensitive, a lot more aggressive, and quite unwelcoming. If you came from a space that wasn't connected, that wasn't wealthy, or wasn't how they thought it should be, which is kind of like the Delhi route, it's all about the money and what phone and what car have you arrived in. And that was the scene back then. So it was so much of adapting, really. I think I was so deeply a Mumbaikar ingrained in me that I didn't really care. You remember we had this club called Touch, and I would land out outside Touch in a rickshaw and get off right outside the club because I was like, I want max people to see me exiting from a rickshaw. In those days, I used to think that, this is how I'll know who my real friends are, who are the ones going to ignore me or make a comment about it. So that was my filtering process as a queer person that wasn't out of the closet. So there was a lot of layers for me to filter out.
I have this in my research that you were at HSBC and Google AdWords, which I can never imagine you as that kind of corporate guy behind a desk. And then you became a makeup artist. So how did you find your creative soul? And what was going on in your mind when you made this decision to also pack up, leave Hyderabad, move to Bombay, and transition from this? Literally, HSBC and Google are like the poster boys of a corporate world. So how did you decide to ditch that and find your creative path?
I never knew what I wanted to do for sure, because everything was, I'm very Freudian in my outlook of life, because I really do think everything boils down to how much of your sexual identity you are in touch with. And because I was in the closet then, I didn't know that all of these queer options of work and vocation are even accessible or possible. So you think and you learn to spin on an axis that is familiar to you, which is this heteronormative world and things that everybody else is doing. And I certainly didn't want to be a doctor or an engineer, which every Hyderabadi was becoming. I didn't have the upper compartment for it. But yeah, I just knew I wanted to do something creative. But right after college, I applied at these, HSBC and other companies, they would visit the college, what's it called? Placements or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's how I got in. And I started working literally 5 or 6 days after finishing my degree course at Bhavan, Sanikpuri. And started working, and time just flies. 2 years went there. Then I got a job at Ivy Comtech, which is a gaming company. I worked 2 years there. Then I worked 2 years in Google. And these jobs just came about because I could speak well. I was articulate. I was charming in interviews. So I got the job. In fact, I really don't know why Google even kept me around. I was so underproductive. On an average day, all my colleagues were maybe exchanging about 40, 50 advertiser emails, communication between advertisers and us. I was doing like 3, maybe 5 on a good day. The rest of the time, I was just YouTubing makeup and looking at shoots and shows and thinking about, I don't know what the hell. Oh my God, it was so odd. I still won a competition called Google Idol back in those days. And so my team leader then, Ravi, he would always say, we are keeping you, you're great for team morale. We need you there for the morale. Nobody can bring to the team what you bring in terms of camaraderie or creating an energy. Yeah, that was my journey largely. And all the corporate jobs I had, I was just kicked out of. HSBC also, I lost my job. Yeah, I think my personality type is just not suited to that environment of following instructions, playing this sort of donkey on the bridge. Just can't.
I love that. And you mentioned earlier that you hadn't been out of the closet yet, and which is why that was something that was kind of guiding your decision making. So tell me a little bit about how you came out first to yourself and then to your family and the world, and what was that like?
Oh, that denial process is really just the bane of every queer person. It takes so much of coping and introspecting and all of that. Very, very tough, especially for a young 17, 16, 18, 19-year-old person. It's really tough. And I wish heterosexuals were sensitized in schools to be of some sort of support and not to break a queer person's spirit in the bargain. But yeah, how it happened was I just decided that I wanted to just be free. And in Hyderabad, there was a lot of this blackmailing business that used to go on with us when we were younger. Stupid things, really. I mean, getting scared that somebody's going to make a phone call to my mother and out me. Because they would, when they found me hanging out with my girlfriends, Nikul Naidu back then in college. So when I would drop her to college on my bike, I would get threat calls. My mother would get threat calls saying, if he's spotted with Nikul again, we'll finish him off. You won't see us again. These are the kind of stupid threats. I mean, I'm a gay boy. What are you threatened by, And this was not just one odd phone call. There were many. So I used to just fear that if these people found out, I mean, imagine then what they have on me. So just that wanting to sort of sort out your leverage in a way, because the moment this is open, there's nothing else I have to hide from. There's nothing I want hidden. So that was a journey. That was a decision to ease and iron out my issues and fears. I came out at about 21, and then my parents really didn't make my life easy for the next 2 years. It was quite difficult. I was feeling suicidal, and it was a natural course of things in the larger scheme for queer people. So it's not a sympathy baiting thing. But that was what it is. And at 23, I decided I'm just going to up and leave home and move to a city that I knew was accepting, better than Hyderabad, at least in those days. So I said, that's it. I'll just up and leave and take whatever money I can from my Google stocks and shares that we had been presented with by the company when we joined. And so I had just barely 200,000 Indian rupees, 2 lakhs. And that's not a lot at all in Bombay especially. But to me, it was a lot. To me in my head, I was like, oh my God, main lakpati hai. Because I have 2 lakhs, it's really nothing. So I made that move. I came here to Bombay with 2 big suitcases, and I was ready to live in a slum if I had to. I was like, okay, I'll pay 5,000 rupee rent and manage the whole year, even if I don't get any job or whatever. But I came here, I applied at MAC Cosmetics because I heard they were looking out, and I got a really nice, handsome salary, and I could live well in Bandra West. Yeah, so I just moved at 23 because I just wanted my sanity and my freedom as an adult. Yeah, and I never thought or looked back. And I decided to cut off ties, sever ties with whatever felt like it was holding me back, including friendship, because it brought back too much. And if in that moment, I needed to sweep things under the rug, I needed it gone from my eyeline. So I just untethered myself from everything that may be sensitive about making this big change. So I really had to harden myself for that.
It really breaks my heart to hear you say it's a normal part of a queer person's journey to have suicidal thoughts. That's just awful. And I want to hear if you have some advice for the youth around the age of 17, 18 who are struggling and fighting with this decision to come out or not. What would you say to them?
Thankfully, I feel like it's thanks to people, trans people and other people of color internationally, and even here, that have been torchbearers when it was hard, that have been rebellious when it was hard, and that have taken a message beyond what we can even think today. Because of them, my journey was better, and because of all of us, somebody else's journey is better. So I don't see a lot of young people at 17, 18, 19 really struggling in that sense. Yes, it's an internal battle that, you wage onto yourself, but the repercussions socially are not as severe because people are sensitized today than they were 20 years ago, even in Hyderabad, or any other city. Yes, there may be in pockets of the country, but that is the pace of life. And we have to hold space for the world to spin at its own pace. You can't expect sudden change overnight. And I think this generation has a lot of nice things and maybe even a lot of bad things, but they certainly have self-respect. And that's something I give them full props for. They know their worth from a young age because it's also an indoctrination. You get this feedback from society or your familial groups and education, or even the internet and what you're exposed to. So in that sense, it's not as difficult. But nonetheless, I think a queer person the EQ is slightly more developed because of our coping mechanism having built through all of this trauma, which a lot of heterosexual people haven't had the chance to develop as strongly.
And in the lockdown, you started the NBs, which I want to hear a little bit more about. And I want to also talk about, actually, you and I have spoken about this before, where even in the community, the spectrum is so wide that I think people in general will be like straight or gay, or like it's not that simple. So I want to hear a little bit about how you kind of put the awards together and general views on how you see this non-binary spectrum.
So the premise of it is I always have been involved in things to do with the community, but because my stage was small and I wasn't always holding a mic in my hand, I didn't know where to start or what to do, where to go with it. So the most you do is help out younger queer people and, pass the torch on opportunity and knowledge and whatever it is, a coping mechanism. You pass that on. But when the lockdown happened, again, it was a cancel plan for me because whatever work was happening, whatever work trajectory I had, it had to change. And what did we do with our time when we had no inkling on how soon this is going to end, what's going to happen? So the first 3 months, of course, I spent cooking like everybody else and teaching myself dishes and posting it on the Instagram and feeling gung-ho about it. And then I did the whole painting. But after that, I realized that, I want to do something for the community. And I think this is the right time because a lot of trans persons are struggling with housing and no employment and all of that. So I started the non-binary virtual awards, not just by myself. I partnered with certain people. The hub in Bengaluru were my technical arm support. My friend Shaun in Delhi was, the creative guy behind all of the design aspects and things like that. So I had a lot of good queer help or queer-friendly help. And I put together a panel of 5 judges, a trans person, a heterosexual ally in Aditi Rao Hydari, a common friend. So Shishant Divgikar, an entertainer. There were so many, a producer and a publicist, whatever, Shobna, who was also part of the jury. So I had this well-rounded jury, and I wanted to have an awards show that celebrated individuals and organizations that have been sort of a pivotal part of, or rather a part of India's larger queer movement. And I wanted to raise money for trans persons' welfare through it. So I got Maybelline New York on board as a sponsor. And at the end of it, we raised 5 lakhs and we gave that to an organization for it. And of course, 5 lakhs to us isn't a lot. But to a trans organization, even 1 lakh is a lot. They can do a hell of a lot with it. And none of them have ever been felicitated with even the attention or the time or the invitation or a chance to hold something that's beautiful, that's curated for them, that makes them feel seen or heard or valued. So for me, that was the whole point of it. But I never in my wildest thoughts thought that I would encounter queer politics and identity politics the way that they exist in today's world. And through that period, I remember I got a lot of bricks thrown at me from the very community that I was aiming to help, which is the non-binary community. And it's called the Non-Binary Virtual Awards, the NBs. So it is about shining a light on non-binary folk. But what they assumed was that it was exclusively about them. It's not. You're just a part of a larger umbrella. It's the LGBTQIA and plus and everybody. And A also means allies. So it's not excluding heterosexuals. People were upset that I had a heterosexual person in Aditi as a jury member, and they were like, why is she a judge? So we're judging things on like contributions and artistic thing. And who better than someone with, that history? But this is what it is. And at the end of it, I remember Shobna telling me after we started getting all the stones virtually, she said, welcome to queer politics. It did leave a bad taste in my mouth, but I also realized a few things about me and my own self-learning through it, which was one, I think that, which is what I give advice to all of you young people, don't start screaming about your veganism and your freedoms and your desire to have more when you have no mic and no stage. Then you're just in your little echo chamber, like sitting with your utensils on the balcony and clapping and making a noise. It's creating nothing. There's just 50 people shouting at each other and each one is resharing and thinking, oh, wow, look at the big ruckus we've made. But no one else can hear you. So it's too small a chamber. So build a stage, get a nice mic and a nice feedback outside. I feel like it's so important to plant your little friends in your enemies' camps. These are life learnings. And this is something that I really think is important. You have to work with the devil to change his plans. You can't do it behind his back. And so I realized that a lot of these struggles that were not directly mine were becoming mine. And so my trans friends or my non-binary friends' struggles were becoming my struggles, and their problems were becoming my problems, and their perspective was becoming my perspective. And I was getting triggered and agitated for somebody else's cause. As somebody that is offering solutions, you should not. And I wish I'd known that earlier. But for me, then to separate was very difficult. So I think one has to be objective, keep your finger on the pulse of truth and facts and pragmatism, and the feeling can then just be on a back burner somewhere. But that should not be your lighthouse, you know. It can just be the axis that you're spinning off of. But that's a learning for sure. Another big learning for me personally, which is also a selfish or a self-centered learning, is to focus on myself and not make other people's problems my own. And I can develop my life and build my stage and get myself a better mic so that then I can have a bigger voice somewhere else where it's appreciated. And the largest reason, I should also mention this since we're talking about it for people that don't know anything about the NBs, is I got attacked because on my Instagram post, that handle is no longer active also, I don't use it, but the NB's handle, I had posted an image of trademark of our font that we created, ENBY, and that trademark with the logo was trademarked. So all I did was, oh, congratulations, we have finally filed for trademark, and yay, this is our thing, whatever. People thought I trademarked the word NB, and that's where they were triggered. Oh, who is this cisgendered queer trash from Bombay for clout? He's gone and trademarked who he thinks he owns our identity, and he has trademarked us. And blah, 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 blah. Gosh, read the damn caption. But it's okay, that is youth, I suppose, and his folly.
That is really useful and insightful, especially for me, because I have not been able to slip into queer politics at all. In fact, actually, a few months ago, I was trying to help an organization raise funds, and I requested if I could post it on Instagram. And they, over there, kind of shut me out, and they said no more information will be given to you. And I kind of saw their reasoning later. At the beginning, I was like, I'm trying to help them. Why don't they want the help? It was for a shelter for people who have been kicked out of their homes because they identify as trans. And this was kind of like a rehabilitation center. And they said, if we give you any information and you put it on the internet, somebody's going to come and beat up these poor kids. So I was like, that makes so much sense. I wish this was something that I had thought of or knew or this thing. But yeah, that's like a dicey situation, right? Like, how do you provide help when you want to, but obviously it's not in their best interest that you do it through a mic, for example. Yeah. I think we're living in a world where there's no right answers for the most part.
Yeah.
And you discover as you go, and everyone has the right to their own experience and their own learning and their own insights.
Yeah, and even though I'm fairly left of center in my views and my politics, but the left can really take things out of context and be so superbly black or white that they refuse to identify that life is existing in the grays. So for me, it is just to keep my eye open on that grayscale.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway for our conversation overall today, I think. I'm going to shift a little bit to the makeup side of things. We haven't spoken a lot about that. I want to hear about your most favorite shoot or your most memorable shoot and why.
There's a few. One of them would probably be this Sabyasachi campaign that we shot in the Seychelles and Desroches Island. It was just a great team. Sabya is incredible to work with, of course. I haven't done a hell of a lot with their brand, but that shoot was incredible. I mean, if you remember it, there's Archana Akhil Kumar coming out of the big water, looking up in her little wet kaftan and the jewelry. And it was incredible. Just a great experience. And my trans assistant, Romy, was with me. And so we made so many memories there. So much fun. Long days, but nice. I enjoy it. Other than that, I'm very inspired by just natural places. I love the sun. I love the tropics. So if you give me like a nice warm beach or even a mountainside that overlooks the water body, that's just it for me. It doesn't beat it. It's fairly luxurious, but no amount of luxury can beat that, even if it's a simple little shack or whatever. I love the tropics. I like fruit on a beach. I like eating my prawns and my seafood. So these are great spaces.
Really painting a picture. Love it.
Really, everything is centered around food and the activity. The only problem with being on an island when you're working is you can't get laid because your grinder, the hooking up app, everybody's like miles away and no one's going to take a chartered flight to come bonk.
You never know.
Other than that, I did shoot something really fun recently in Krabi. It was a Tanishq campaign. Again, what a great team. I knew none of the 4 models that were part of it. It was great. We bonded. As soon as we came back the next evening, 2 of them came home and we had dinner again because we were missing the crew. So we said, let's hang and eat. But yeah, great experience. When the photographer is someone that's really cool and old school, but still has new age applications, like they're all inclusive and they're fun and they're chill and they have a sense of humor. They don't take themselves too seriously, but yet they have the knowledge and the insight of an older gen. That's just my favorite. So when it's Keval or Vishwa or, all of these photographers, I really enjoy shooting with them. It's great.
What would you say is like one tip you would give to someone who's starting out in makeup? I've seen that like the barrier to entry is very low now. There's a lot of tutorials online. Everyone has the skills almost. I've seen a lot of teenagers start doing their own makeup. What would you say is like one evergreen tip that like not everyone can do it?
I mean, doing makeup isn't hard. Doing it professionally is what makes you a professional. So I don't know what the goal, if you're calling yourself a makeup artist, a professional makeup artist, then I want to see a body of work. I want to see a repertoire. And I want to see credentials. So I want to understand what your goals are. You can be a makeup artist and aim to only do brides your whole life, which is easy money. You can aim to only be like a chela to celebrity or to actors. And that's one way of going about it. You can only do fashion, only commerce. But I don't know if you can call yourself, if you're just doing prosthetics, that's another route. But for me, a professional's hand will only shake so much. And that's because of the excitement and the nerves, but not because they don't know what they're doing, And when you're working on a producer's dime under his watchful eye and clicking timepiece, then the pressure is real. When you're on a stage with a mic and a camera on you, and you're putting on a show and your showmanship shows, that for me is a professional. It tells how much of a professional you are. Right. So I need also to be able to bridge ideas. For example, if I'm working with Aditi Ra, she has a certain idea of what she looks good in. I have an idea of what I want to do. And if we can't find humility to meet in the middle, then it won't work. So how much do you understand yourself at a human level where you can bend backwards and give up something that you want so that you can make way for someone else's wants? That makes a difference too. So I would say develop. And today, with all the information that is there via YouTube or books or virtual help or reels or all of it, we're all like little beauticians in our own spaces anyway. Everybody knows the basics, especially in tier 1, 2, 3 cities. But my advice would be just give it time and be patient and don't be entitled. So I just feel like, zen out a bit and allow things to come at their own pace and don't be in a rush to grow into an adult.
That's great advice. Okay, now I'm going to change the pace a little. I'm not going to call it a rapid fire. Let's go with some quickies. Let's ask you some quick questions.
Yeah.
Who is someone in your life you would cancel any plan for?
My bestie Veer. He's like my daughter, my bestie, sometimes my mother. Yeah. This is someone I would cancel any plans for.
What is so far the best excuse that you ever used for cancelling plans?
I got my period. Okay, wait, I'll tell you. I probably said, I've got an upset stomach. I don't know. That's it. But I'm very, very transparent. I don't make excuses to me. I'll just say, sorry, I don't feel it.
Yeah, this is true. I know this to be true. If you could cancel any one thing in the world, what would it be?
Ooh, I would say everything has its place, but I would cancel patriarchy.
That concludes it for us.
Thanks, Mallika.
Thank you so much for doing this. I think this is a really fun conversation. I hope to see you
we
soon.
We can always churn out something good out of all our cancel plans.
Yes, absolutely.
When life gives you lemons, what do?
I don't have a good one.
Suck on him.
You just listened to my conversation with Elton Fernandez on the Cancel Plans podcast. Thank you so much for being on the show, Elton. And thank you so much for opening up about your story. I'm sure it'll be super inspirational for everyone listening. Check out the episode description to see where you can follow Elton and his work. Oh, and don't forget to check out Cancel Plans at www.cancelplans.com. Follow us on Instagram at cancelplans.club and come say hi to me on my personal Instagram, which is at Mallika Reddy G. See you next week.
Yo, tell them to follow me also. Even I have opened one Instagram account.
Oh, really, Auntie? Sure, of course. What's your Instagram handle?
Handle? What is handle? I don't have any handle in all that. What is this?
Okay, no problem. You can tell them next time, okay?